always gets me hyped, dude. I'm just like, yeah.
Was that you? Did you record that?
No, I have no. So I'm a drummer. I have musical talent, but not vocal.
Yeah.
And that's actually D.B. Rook, the author of Callous and Crow. That's his band, Tainted Sun.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. Thank you for being here, my man, Andrew D. Meredith. How are you tonight?
I'm good. It's been a busy week.
Bro, is there any week that goes by and a father and a mother's life that we're like, you know what, this weekend we're just gonna relax. We're so full of it. It just doesn't happen.
Well, we've gotten a lot better about just telling people we're not hanging out. I'm an extrovert, but if I get burnt out too much, I'm like, I need nobody, and so I need to play some video games, maybe even get some work done too. And I'll say, anybody wants to schedule, I'll have no qualm saying, I'm sorry, we're just not this weekend.
Well, see, I would be lying if I'm like, yeah, I can relate, because where we are and how we are, like, we don't have a lot of like couples that we go out with or nothing like that. What I mean is, like, I'm just like, kids, please, for mommy and daddy's sanity, can we watch Alice in Wonderland? Can we listen to a book? Can we watch, whatever it is? And they're just like, no, we're going to run around. We're going to throw a few things.
Do you have them on Bluey yet?
Dude, yes, they are, but it's only like a little bit.
It's the older kids, yeah,
exactly. Like the 8-month-old's kind of just like she has reflux, so she spits up 24/7. So mommy's always on spit up duty because me, I'll spit up with her.
Sure,
like I have such a weak stomach. and then the 1-year-old's really, really good. Like he's such a fun kid, and then the 5 and the 3-year-old are just like, you know. But
I was so glad when we discovered Bluey, and it got them off of all the really awful shows that I couldn't stand anymore. Like PJ Masks and I never watched that stupid pig show. And it was just like, Bluey is good. It's also good. It's also written for the parents too. And so, like, if it's on, I'm sitting there working and I'm crying.
Yes,
because it cuts so deep so fast. It is so good. We just picked up all 3 seasons on DVD, so we don't have to log in into anything. We can just watch it. And my kids are 9 and 10, and they've been watching it nonstop all week. It's like, fine, great, fine.
And you hit a good point too, because like there was an episode of somebody, they were taking the kids fishing, and it was like how fast a kid grows up, and like, oh, that hit the parent and right in the old soft spot, right? So I mean, I totally agree with you. Ryan, my good friend, good evening to you, man. No, he's in Oklahoma, I believe. Tell me if I'm wrong, Ryan. Stopping in a few, heading off. Oh, look at you going to a concert. Let me know where you're going, man. I'm a huge music buff. Yes, have fun. Tim, look at Tim number 2 checking in.
2 Tims.
We're Tim squared, if you will.
Yeah.
John Douglas, my guy. Alrighty, folks. Let's get cozy, dude. And what I love too is Andrew came equipped, wearing the shirt that I put on the thumbnail. Yes, dude. Represent Wonka. Yeah. Have you seen the new one? I
have not yet.
Okay.
I have not. I would like to see it just for I've seen a couple of the musical numbers and it looks fun. And so my wife got this shirt for me when she threw my 40th birthday, which was a Wonka party, and it was candy everywhere. And you can't see it, but I've actually got Wonka right up here.
Dude, represent it. Oh yes, yes, Gene Wilder one.
Yeah,
yes.
And the song "Pure Imagination" is probably one of the most beautiful in movie songs ever written.
Oh, I would agree.
Yeah.
It just brings you back.
Oh yeah. If you ever want to lose a great 17 minutes of your life, there's a guy online who did an analysis of why it is the greatest song ever written for it. And he goes through and just discusses the whole musical theory of the song, how it's rising, how it's falling. I don't know the guy's name, but if you look up Pure Imagination Greatest Song Analysis, it's a deep dive for like 20 minutes. And so as long as you know your music theory, it'll take you hard.
I didn't take music theory in high school. I wish I would have, because I have a lot of buddies. But through my buddies, I feel like I got the 101, if you will.
Right. And as a musician, you just know a lot innately too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they always assume us drummers don't know music, and that's bull.
It is. I can read music, dude.
Yeah, I can't read music, but I have really good musical theory.
Yes. And honestly, without the only music I can read is the snare drum.
Okay, cool.
So, and I took band and stuff for a little while, just until my coach was like, look, you have to choose one. You have time for both.
Right.
I played football, but I loved it, man. If there was one thing in life that I excelled at, like first before anything other, it was music. So it's super fun, man. So, Mike Roberti, what's up? Roberts. He always joke with him like I say it like that. Yeah. All right, man. So I always kind of start out with kind of an introduction, just in case people anyone that is watching isn't familiar with what you do or what you've done. They get a taste at the beginning, and then we'll go into some currents. So let everybody know what you do, which there's lots of it. You're a very talented guy. And then tell us about your most recent release.
So I am Andrew Meredith, and I am an author of fantasy books. And I've written, I'm started my third series now, but so my sixth book is out. My first the first book that came out was Thrice. And its sequel, Fourscored, are out. There's two more coming in that series, and that's a Slavic fantasy, lone wolf and cub story, man and boy on the road. A 14-year-old could read it, no problem. So
it's touching.
And it's written for all ages, but especially if you're a dad, right? I wrote it as a dad, and I was like, I'm writing this book. It is not the first book I wrote. The first book I wrote was the beginning of the Collation saga, which starts with Deathless Beast. And then Bone Shroud. And book 3 is Gloves of Eons. And book 4 is with betas right now. And that one, so that the book 4 will end the first big arc.
Okay.
I didn't know that. There'll be 8 books in the Collation saga for the first series in the world. So 4 does finish the arc, and then I'll finish the second arc, and it'll be a rounded story. But so that's a big, long, epic fantasy: paladins, paladames, mercenaries, gods that are doing way too much to cause problems, and men who wear cloaks made of bones that makes them invisible to the gods that want to kill them. But it's a much more introspective story, philosophical, a lot of religious overtones and different religious sects interplaying with each other, because I wrote it as a means to answer some things I felt were missing in a lot of the fantasy I was reading. And so I wrote it, and it's my baby. It's the one I've been working on since, I was a kid, and then finally got around to actually writing it well this last go in 2017. So so that's what I have written up till now. And then I got the urge for like the last 2 years to write a cozy, and I didn't get around to ever doing it until we were watching All Creatures Great and Small, and which is on PBS. You can watch it on their app. It's about a Yorkshire veterinarian who in the night just before and during World War II. And it's one of the most, if you're having a stressful week, that show will bring you right down really nicely. It's just a beautiful story, good people, great drama. But it's about, and it's based on a real guy's life. It's autobiographical. All the names are changed, but it's his story as a veterinarian. And I said, who's doing a veterinarian cozy? And I did. I sat down January 27th and started writing it, and I finished it February 27th, and now it's out. So I hammered this thing out. So this is Quaint Creatures, Magical and Mundane.
Because it's not small. It's not huge, but it's not small.
No, it's about 60,000 words. So, a lot of most cozy mysteries or Western books run around about that length. So a little short for a fantasy, but that's okay. It's about as long. This is as long as Legends and Lattes was about 60,000 words. So it's about a giant, and he and his wife, who is an elf, open up a veterinarian clinic and pet store, because he used to be an inspector for dungeons, and now people bring in their weird creatures, and he checks them out, make sure they're eating right, and then he also handles problems around the city. So like his old professor from college is an undead lich, and he just recently bought the local one of the local dungeons and asks him to come out as a favor to do an inspection so he can get accreditation with the city. So the city will start putting bus stops in so heroes can come out and adventure inside of his tower.
I think that so most people in the fantasy realm, you mean a lot of the people here and that we talk to on a daily have read oh geez, you just said it.
Legends and Lattes.
Legends and Lattes, which has a very cozy feel. It does, man. And I like what you did is you took an idea that really kind of spoke to you that was different and you made it your own, because gosh, in my head, it's just like, how could you go wrong with a cozy fantasy based off a veterinarian clinic that you can incorporate so much with that. You've got the magical creatures.
Yeah.
And then I just immediately related with the giant. Yeah. Just immediately. Because he's nice, he's sweet, he does his thing, and he doesn't want to give anybody no trouble. No,
he doesn't. So he's also I make a lot of Dungeons and Dragons references. So like E.L. Montague is absolutely on spot. He said Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, does Renaissance Fair. So it's All Creatures Great and Small or Dr. Quinn meets Pixar's Onward. So that's the way that's the vibe I was going for. Yeah. So he's a neutral. He has a neutral alignment, and there's a couple of jokes about him possibly sloughing off his neutral and heading towards lawful good and little references like that. So there's a ton of D&D references. And then to answer John's question, yes, he does cook the critter sometimes because he's a pescatarian. So when the fish age out of his shop, he just pops them in the pot and eats those.
You know, I could be a pescatarian. I could, man. I love fish. I really do.
Yeah, so he does. He does. I mean, he's not a pure vegetarian. So it's pescatarian. He does eggs. But he just doesn't do any walking meat.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I could do that. If I was forced to do that, I could.
Yeah.
So, what was obviously you busted this out? What was this process writing this cozy fantasy any different for you than your previous? Obviously, you've done this multiple times.
Yeah.
Was this different for you?
Very, because I discovery wrote this whole thing. I don't discovery write. I am an outliner. I wouldn't say I'm a pure outliner. The more you look at it, the nuance is more like I set myself up with a good outline with a lot of sandbox to play in. So that's how I usually write. In this case, I literally wrote it in 27 days, in 30 days, and had probably a week of it I wasn't writing because I was doing like some prep work, because I still have certain habits like I'm not going to break. I don't want to break. You know, like I hit the halfway point, I'm going to stop and reread what I've written and then continue on. So that's going to happen. And there were points where I was like, I don't know where this is going. So I'll just, because you can only filler so much. So if you ever watch something like All Creatures or any kind of cozy show or any like Studio Ghibli movie, there's a lot of moments where it has nothing to do with the plot. It's just life. And so that's right. And so I did a lot of that where I had a whole like 3 chapters where he's just at the clinic helping people. And I was like, I don't know. I called out to my YouTube friends, said, what do you think I should do? And Kay from Kay's Hidden Shelf is like, I don't know. How about a red panda when she sneezes, she teleports? And I was like, that's a plot point now.
She likes red pandas.
Yeah. Who doesn't? Right.
Right.
And so, yeah, I like her panda so much. I made them like one of the main.
I was going to say, I saw the stickers that you sent to, well, you probably send them to everybody, but Ithra.
Yeah.
On X, and she's often here. She's probably working right now, but I love her.
Yeah.
A huge community person like yourself. A red panda, because man, that's a creature in America that we're like, oh, it's cute, so we're starting to learn more about it. Unfortunately, the cute ones get the attention.
That's right.
But I think that's brilliant, man. And not only that, it takes somebody that's humble and trusting to reach out to a friend and say, hey, I know that you love books like I do. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. we're a community for a reason. And yes, they'll say that being an author is a lonely job because while you're typing, it's lonely. Absolutely. Even if you're in the middle of a sprint with somebody else on the other end of a camera, you're still by yourself doing your own thing. But you got to ask help. It's why certain authors are not finishing their really long series after 40 years. And he still hasn't. Okay. And now he's working on other projects. I won't say his name. It's George R. R. Martin. And I don't think he's asking for help. And I think he needs to. I think he has the money, and Tor does too, that if they want to make their bones and sell millions of dollars of the stuff, he needs to ask for help and say, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do.
I'm going to get to the Renegade Bard. That's Brian D. Anderson. He's been on both sides, traditional and indie. He's a guy. Yeah. He's a go-to guy. If I've got a question, I'm going to get to that question in just 1 second, Brian.
And he's part of your beard group.
No, he's not, but he should be.
Oh yeah,
he should be. Yeah. He's got a hell of a beard, dude. Remind me of the point you were just making. I'm so sorry.
I think it was.
I forget.
I was just you. Ask for help from friends.
Yes.
If you don't know what you're doing, figure it out. There's no shame in that.
George R. R. Martin.
Yeah.
Do you think so? There's two sides of this, and I'm going to be completely honest. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I had this conversation with a lot of people. Like, imagine putting yourself in George R. R. Martin's shoes. Okay, this guy was not who he is today. In fact, he's been this household name for much shorter of a time than he has, not being.
He's been writing since the 70s.
Yeah, and he had a rough start, and he gained some traction, and then as of late blown up. Do you think being in his position? I'm going to speak from my point of view, and you too, if you'd like. There's a certain amount of confidence that may evolve into pride.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think? I'm trying to put myself in this and be honest. Like, if I was him and all of a sudden I blew up, would I ask for help?
Right.
Because I'm George R. R. Martin now. And what do you think in your position? What do you think would happen if you hit the big time and then all of a sudden, I have to ask for help? I'd just rather not finish it.
Right. So, I mean, in the end, we don't know his whole story, right?
True.
I think that's part of it. I think probably maybe part of it. And just because it's been so long, I'm to the point now where I think that. However, I think there is also my personal opinion is that there is a bit of shame because I have a feeling that the ending of the TV show was what he planned.
Okay.
And it was lambasted so badly.
Oh.
That it isn't just a matter of what am I going to do to one up myself? That was what I was going to do. And nobody likes that. Wow. If I do this, that's it. So there's shame in that. There's some personal shame that can happen from that. Or there's the defeat of, well, then what's the point? If that's all I had, that's all I had. So why even bother?
Okay.
And so there's a bit of nihilism that can come from a feeling like that. And that may very well be why he's working on other projects to inspire himself. Just like Brandon Sanderson, I personally think that the secret projects were a means for him to re-tap into his muse.
Okay.
And we will see in November if it worked. Because he wrote those before book 5 of Stormlight. And when that one comes out, if it just knocks it out of the park in the way that number 2 did. 3 and 4, you could kind of see some dwindling happening, in my opinion. But still good books. They're not what he was writing before that when he was kind of on his game.
Mm-hmm.
But
I like that.
I think when that comes out, it's going to be proof that what he did, which was super smart, was to do whatever the heck he wanted for a year when he could. And he wrote 4 books that some people love, some people hate. Who cares? They're new. They are so new in comparison to what he had done before. He got to experiment with some themes he was still struggling with getting good at. Like romance is a good example of that.
Yeah.
He's not great at romance. And I understand that I think Yumi the Nightmare Painter has some decent romance. I haven't finished reading it yet.
And that was intended for his wife too, right? Like strictly
that one,
his wife.
And Tress was as well. And then he wrote the Wizard's Guide for himself.
Okay.
And then The Sunlit Man, I think, was just I want to write something else in with a character. And he had a lot of fun with that one too. So in the end, he got to have fun. And we all get to buy books from that. And because of that, he literally turned the entire publishing industry on its head.
On its head, dude.
On its head. It's amazing.
And that's a cool point too. And thank you, man, for the honestness or the honestness.
Yeah.
Look at me making up word. Webster 8 doesn't even know
Honestness is now a word.
Yeah, because being in this fantasy reading realm, if you will, it's new for me still. Kind of, it's only been like 5 years. I did not start when I was young, so
yeah.
My idea of George R. R. Martin and maybe certain aspects of looking, if I'm looking through his eyes, if I have this hugely anticipated, hopefully done, finished to his A Song of Ice and Fire, if I do finish that, if I'm George R. R. Martin, what is after that? Is the anticipation for what's next for me going to be? Yeah, there's many aspects that I just kind of maybe was a little uneducated or ignorant to.
You know,
so thank you.
There are some people who only have one good story in them, and that's okay. To Kill a Mockingbird would be an example of that. She wrote one good story and she didn't write anything else.
Yeah.
So, and I know she wrote another book later on, but I don't think from my understanding, she wasn't even writing in those 50 years between then. So she wasn't improving anything. So let's say you are George R. R. Martin and you get to the end of that and you finish it and people love it and you get to live out the rest of your life, however short that might be, with the money from it, because he's way on the top of his game money wise. They're paying him at the wazoo to do it. The other thing is not to worry about what's after that, because
the legacy.
Well, not just the legacy. You don't know, by getting it out of your system, you may have a better story in you after that you won't see until you are there. So there's a huge argument for you need to write your best ideas now. Instead of, I know there's some that would say, well, no, wait till you have the life experience. Well, you know what, Matt? You're old enough. Don't worry about the life experience anymore. I think you're good. You're not 20.
Right.
Right. So forget that. Right. So throw that out. But you're working on an idea. If you're like, oh, I have this other cool idea. I mean, I could incorporate it and add it as a secondary line in this novel I'm writing, or I could save it to write a whole book about just that idea. Like, is the idea good right now? So yeah, it would work as a secondary character. Write it now. Put it in now. Well, but then I don't get to save it for another book. Yes, but now you've cleared that out of your head to give you room for the next idea, so that by the time you get there, and then your book comes out with that much better of a story, because it's got that secondary line that's happening that's just as awesome. People say, "Oh man, I wish you could write that character as a whole book." You're like, "Yep." So give them your best ideas now. Don't save what you think is, because what you think is good is not what you're going to think is good 5 years from now.
I didn't think that I would have the questions, because I've thought about this in the past, kind of having a discussion upon, there's many authors we wish would finish things or do this or do that, having a conversation on not putting pressure on them. Like, I want George R. R. Martin to be happy. Like, I'm a human. Yep. Like, I want him to be happy and peaceful and do whatever he wants to do. But I keep coming up. I think what I'm saying is I could go down a rabbit hole with this. Yep. But I've learned so much from you just get your aspect, your point of view as an author. So I appreciate you kind of diving into that with me, because I think as we understand each other more as human beings, rather than scientist, author, pharmacist, you know what I mean? As a human being, what he's going through, the different aspects, what I would do personally, because look, we're all different, but we're all very much alike too. Psychology's always been very fascinating to me. Right. Brian, I'm going to finally get to your question. Sorry, man. What makes a story cozy? I've heard the term used in mystery for years, but honestly, never bothered to learn what that meant. Ooh, what a question.
Yeah. So the short answer is cozy is low stakes.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it is not that the word means that, because there's other implications of cozy. So like, yeah, in mystery, that's a great example. We have cozies of like Agatha Christie had her Miss Marple. Miss Marple was a little old lady who sits there and knits while she solves mysteries. It all happens in her little town, and they don't want to ask the police for the problem, so they come to her and she solves it, and she's this just little old lady who solves crimes.
That's my grandmother.
Yeah, so that is the first example of it. But cozy mysteries now tend to mean generally that there may not even be death in the book. It could be that it's who stole the money from the rectory. So it's a pastor who has to solve why someone's stealing money. So it's a very low stakes in that, one, you're not solving life or death issues, and it's not going to be world changing like an epic fantasy or the death of a prime minister. But a cozy story could be the story of a scandal of a prime minister, if it's happening because his wife is solving the fact that he's cheating on her.
Sure.
It's going to have big stakes because it's going to affect the country because there's a scandal for the prime minister, but what it's really about is the scandal in the home. So now the stakes are low because they're within a small area, right?
I also, real quick, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think what the my very first cozy fantasy, which is Legends and Lattes, I haven't read number 2, which is Bookshops and Bone Dust.
Yep.
He starts the book off something, I don't know it word for word, but it's like she jabs the throat and blood spills. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's this contrast, right? I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't know why that just came to me real quick. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, but that leads right into what I was going to say, is just that Legends and Lattes is the best example of cozy fantasy that we currently have in our current. Cozy fantasy has been around for a while, and I can explain that too. But Legends and Lattes has no stakes. The stakes are there's an orc and she opens a coffee shop. That's the whole plot. Literally the whole plot. Well, isn't there other things that happen? No, it's about an orc that opens a coffee shop. That's the plot. So super low stakes. It's about a coffee shop. So that's where it comes to in fantasy. We have had cozy fantasy around for forever. You can very easily argue that almost all of Discworld is cozy.
Oh yes,
because it's about yeah, right. Because maybe you have a murder mystery, but in the end, it's never about the murder. It's about the cops having problems. It's The Office, right? The Office is a cozy show,
which is a big, broad theme too that could go deep if you wanted to. But yes,
just about an office, life in an office. So that's what cozy is, and so you see a lot of cozy that's popping up now with like that, and there's several others in SBFBO. I think there's one called Tea and Treason or something like that. Another one about cocktails. So a lot of them have been like bars and drinks and stuff, and that's why I chose to do something totally different. I had several cozy ideas, and I finally said, you know what, veterinarians, and so it just happened. It was just the right timing for me.
You know, if you're honest about the veterinarian services, the job that they have to do, there's good. There's that as we're a kid, that very pure sense, but there's some things that they do that aren't so cozy. So what I'm trying to get at though is when I think of veterinarian, they take care of our puppies and our kitties and
dragons
and dragons. Yes. And I love it, man. And I think that is a beautiful representation of what I probably would have never thought of veterinarian, but I think it was the best choice.
And I'm working on the second one now.
I love that. We'll get to that because I know they'll spill too many beans, as I know you wouldn't. But I'm excited to hear what you're working on. Let's see real quick. I'm going to look over here in the comments, see if there's any more wonderful questions. So I agree with that, Brian. I do. Montague, a storyteller tells stories. I can't imagine walking away. Maybe not publishing, but stopping. I love playing with my worlds. He does. Yes, he does. And I can
it also depends on what kind of hurt you get in life. That's what could cause you to stop. If you had an absolute defeat, you hear stories of particular authors just quitting because they got not necessarily canceled, but just kind of ruined by the world, and they're just done.
Imagine being in that position,
right? And so, what's the best way to get around that ahead of time? And that's always writing.
Out of the equation. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's always writing.
So I've probably asked you this before, but I'd like to touch on it again for me. And other people who are going to watch, obviously. But after writing, this is your 7th novel, right?
Sixth novel. Yeah.
After writing 6 novels, what would you say to the guy that's like, okay, I have a story. It's not edited yet. I still have to have it edited. I'm going to take this approach and do some self-publishing. What is that thing that you wish you knew?
Take your time joining the community.
Okay.
So I made some of this mistake in my first year, and now I feel like I spend a lot of time helping new authors kind of chill out a little bit, because there's a lot of new authors will show up. One, our community is very hard to find. I think the algorithm buries us. As soon as you find the community, you found all of us all at once. Just a flood.
It is.
But anybody who enters is like, I couldn't even find anybody. I was like, well, we're right here. Yeah. You just got to find one. And that's why we have BookTube, right? And so that is where you find Beard of Darkness. And from that, everybody in the comments, you go find them on Twitter and just friend them. Doesn't mean you got to go chat with them. Just start interacting. But a lot of new authors start off thinking, I'm going to go for the big fish and become the best friends with the biggest authors in India. And I'm going to ask all the big reviewers to review my book. And it's like, whoa, chill out.
Yeah. Stop. There's a building up thing.
Yeah. And that's difficult because it takes a lot of patience. But you have to treat it like high school or college. You are a freshman. The friends you make the first year will not be the friends you make that you keep for the rest of school for the next 3-4 years. And even if the student body president and the popular kids act nice to you, it's not that they are your friends, nor are they your enemies. They're just, there's a new kid, I should introduce them to everybody. But that doesn't mean they're your friends. You're going to make other friends, and that's good. Make introductions, become friends, because you will get better reviews. You can curate your reviews by having good friends who are happy to read your books because they like you, not because you begged them for it. So that is, it is, Montague, it is about being authentic and being patient. It doesn't take nearly as long as you think, but it is a long 6 months.
What sorry, my brother. Now he is a part of the Beards, the 4 Beardsmen of Bookpocalypse, David List. My dude, I gotta throw his book up. Where is it, brother? I'll find it. Hold on. Give me Violence and Vigilance if I don't find it.
Nice.
You guys, oh my god, it's gritty. It's so good. Beard of Darkness is how I got into the online bookieverse. Dude, that's crazy. I love that, man, because I had no idea. When David, just to put this in perspective, when I reached out to you, bro, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna have an author on my channel. So it's a mutual feeling, man. Yeah. That's so cool to hear, though. So going into what you just said about being a freshman. Look, guys, when you decide, and I had no idea before starting a BookTube channel, especially an indie-based representing the indie fantasy specifically. Look, I can't go more than maybe indie fantasy and some horror, or indie fantasy and whatever, because there's so many wonderful people and authors creating these works of creativity and beautiful works of art with their fingertips. One channel cannot do it. One channel will never be able to do it. There's got to be many of us. We've all got to work together, and that's what this community does well. And even as a booktuber, so let's say from your perspective, an author's like, oh, I found this great community. Mike's book reviews has 100,000 people follow him. I need to get on his channel, right? He turns down probably a lot of people. Yeah. Just based on his schedule. He's one person. Yeah. Yeah. And then like Daniel B. Green, like 500,000 people. Yep. You know, he turns down so many people, not because I think that they're wanting to turn somebody down, but there's so many minutes in a day. Yeah. So I don't think there's one answer, but getting in with somebody who is inspired and so if you look at my views, like I am not in this for anything other than the joy that I get from talking to people like AndrewDMth. And I think that that's a huge part too. There's some people who do this for, and they do it well. They get money from it, and but don't ever think that you're going to join YouTube and go to the top. You might,
and that's a lottery ticket.
Yes, it is.
I mean, Ryan Cahill it says it. Brandon Sanderson says it. They got a lottery ticket, and it cashed in overnight. Yep. And no matter and you can say, okay, I'm going to do the same things he did, and nothing happens. Or like because he won the lottery. That's, success is a path that you don't know when you start how close you are to the end. There are some people who start 1 foot before the finish line and suddenly they're successful. There are others who run a marathon. There are others who will never see the end because they're lost in the woods. But if you're there for the race because you want to write a dang good book, then write a dang good book. And you and seek your audience. That's the other thing that's what goes hand in hand with that. It is not about finding readers. It's about finding your audience.
Ooh.
That I mean, like John Douglas is a great example, right? He has written a book that is being hailed by Iron Age. It's a perfect Iron Age book.
It is.
And he is friends with everybody in Iron Age, so he has his audience. Yeah. So that's a fantastic start, and then he can go from there.
Tori, right? Because you love telling a good story. If you make money doing it, yeah,
exactly.
As somebody who
you'll be found. You'll be found. I was very lucky that I happened to befriend one person who introduced me to a couple others, and then one of them finally read my book, and then 5 more read my book, and now I have like 5 super fans, and that's it.
Well, I think there's more than that.
It's great. Sure. But you know what I mean? You get the super fans that make it worth it. That you can send them a book and they write a review up that's 3 pages long, and you're like, love it. Now I want to promote them, not just for my own sake, because if someone sees their reviews, they'll read my review, they'll read my books. But I promote them because they write such good reviews. I want them to write more. So I know at least 2 writers like Elizabeth Allen and Quinn Guiguier. They didn't write before they read my books. My books were their first reviews, and now they're writing a review every other week, and they're good reviews, really in-depth reviews. And so I found friends, and because of that, we all, the rising tide.
On that topic of writing reviews, and I'm sure people have heard me if you guys watched every interview, and there are people who I'm again so thankful for. But writing reviews is something I do now. I'd like to do it more in the future, but it's not something I'm comfortable with. Yeah, I can talk about a book on a recorded video. I can speak to the things that I love, but when it came to actually writing it down, it was very intimidating.
It is.
So for those who can do it so well, I applaud you. Tori says exactly. Learn to tell a good story. That's also helpful. I think both of your points are great, because I hope this comes out right. Learning more about the self-published realm, if you will, authors, readers, and a self-published author has a realistic idea of what's going to happen when their book gets released, contrary to a published book or a traditionally published book that gets a lot of marketing, such as like Leah Bardugo, or
they get a lot of marketing.
Yeah, they get so much marketing, and they get a front row seat at Walmart. And what I find in the indie scene, the self-published author scene, is like passion, and it's not about making the dollar signs. It's like exactly what Tori said. Write because you love, or you really, really want somebody to, even if it's just one person, to enjoy a story that you've had in your brain. And if you make money doing it, that is incredible too.
Yep.
So remind me, who are a few of your foundational influences? Like, Well, okay, we'll go a little bit before. When did you find that love for literature, and who were a few authors that influenced that?
Early on, so I was born in the 80s. I'm an 80s kid, 80s 90s kid. So David Eddings and Dragonlance were big back in the day for me. And I was raised on like Star Trek Next Generation every Thursday night at 7 o'clock.
Back when TV was scheduled and not
Yeah,
streamed.
absolutely. Yep. And get together, sit with the family and maybe even go over to another family member's house and watch all together. It was great. Ninja Turtles were a huge inspiration.
Oh, yes.
So then the 90s, I was a teenager. Life went on. And then Warhammer was a big inspiration for me during college years. So that has some influences on what I've written. But right around after that, after I got married, I kind of quit fantasy for like a year. And I was just like, there's nothing good out. And so until I discovered Brandon Sanderson, he was kind of the beginning. I had been reading a little bit of Hobb, but hadn't. She was a little too dark for my freshly married heart at the time. I'm enjoying her now because I'm an old man, but it wasn't good for me at the time. And so since then, my inspirations haven't been so much inspirations of what I'm trying to be, but like, oh, I need to learn from this. So like Hobb would be a good example of coming in back into her, Lois McMaster Bujold, right now, Janie Wirtz. They all have that, boy, I want to be that good at writing. Not that I want to be them necessarily, but that I want to have something of what they have, but also retain my own identity as well. And so, as an older artist learning, how can you absorb little brush strokes, or like, it's a toolbox, right? I don't know how many tools you use, but in the end, you collect more tools, but you only always ever use the same 3 tools you use for everything because they're your favorites, right?
Isn't Hobb like that slow burn that just stabs you in the heart? Like,
you
have a little bit of hope for a second that she's not going to just rip your heart out, and then she's like, "I'm taking your soul."
Every book. Yep.
Still chasing that Sarah Douglas excellence myself. You'll have to expand on that one day, or now if you'd like, man, because I don't know who that is, and I would like to. Now, this is coming from a guy who I bought the Assassin's Apprentice, illustrated, like, had no idea who Hobb was. Just saw it on Amazon. I was like, oh, that's pretty. She must be important. Yeah. Now knowing the importance of her role in fantasy, man, I just cannot wait to get to more than that.
Yeah.
Just curious, how many of her books have you read?
I have read all of Farseer Trilogy, Live Ship, and I've read one book of the second Fitz and Fool.
That's
group,
deep.
Tawny Man, right? I had started book 2 of Tawny Man when I was dating my wife. And I think that's the point when life happened. And so I had this, I didn't know which of the two, I didn't know which parts of the plot were in which of the books. And so when I went back in to read Tawny Man 1, I was getting to the end and I was like, I swear this thing's going to happen. And then it doesn't happen. And then an hour later, my wife was on an interview with somebody else. I read the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And had to go, and I had to go into the kitchen and sit on the floor and hold my knees and sob silently for half an hour because I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't even go upstairs. And I sat there and sobbed when that occurred. Oh man. Yeah. And so I, after that, promised myself I'm going to read one Hobb a year. So it's going to be about 10 years for me to finish.
One is the limit.
It's enough because I know every one of them is going to be that deep. And, amazing book. That is, I know a lot of people hail that book as the best book that she's written. And I would even argue, I think that book should have been 2 books. Like the whole first third could have been a whole standalone book of just Fitz and Night Eyes and their story. I would read the heck out of a 300,000 word or a 300,000 word book of just that story. My dude. Whatever. So that's as far as I am, and I will finish it eventually and slowly. I'm more excited to read more Janie Wirtz right now and try to get through Wars of Light and Shadow.
So just having read one of her books, which was No, God, dude, I'm so bad at this. It's funny. Anybody who watches me, they're like, "Oh, there goes Matt again, freaking not remembering anything." It's the standalone. Anyway,
Oh, to ride Hell's Chasm.
yes, to ride Hell.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
God, yes.
yeah.
Her scope is epically. I'm going to phrase this in a way because I've talked to her. I've got a good sense of her personality, and she's amazing.
She is.
She is like epically herself. Like,
yes,
her scope is epic. She is who she is, and like, there's no apologizing. She is a strong woman.
Yes.
She's worked with Raymond
and a strong woman, not a strong woman.
What is it?
She is a strong woman, not a Hollywood strong woman.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and yeah, I didn't understand at first. I got you now.
Yeah.
I love everything that we talked about when she does what she does. She does it well, and if it's not for you, that's okay. If it is for you, it's like that's it.
Yep. And she is also the most unskimmable author.
Okay.
You cannot skim a book written by her because every single word is chewed upon, and you can't. It'd be like trying to hork down a steak. You don't hork a steak, right?
Never.
You chew every piece,
especially if it's medium rare.
Yeah. Whereas you buy a 2 cheeseburger large meal from McDonald's, and 5 minutes later you're like, where'd my fries go? It's all gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
Because you can hork those really easy, but you cannot hork Jenny Wirtz.
Jenny, if you're watching, this is Andrew saying your books are very digestible, but you have to make sure to savor every bite.
Absolutely.
Tora, you hit that on the head. Then that nail on the head. Jenny is a force of her own. Is her own force of nature. Yes.
Yep.
So this is going to be out of the blue, but hey, whatever. I think that's good for the genuinity, if that's a word. I make up my own words on this channel.
Every word starts somewhere.
Why should I read Brandon Sanderson?
Why should you read Brandon Sanderson? You don't have to.
No, I know.
You're well read enough that you don't have to. If someone has never read fantasy before and indie, and they want to read something by a traditional author, then the first book I would put in their hands, no matter who they are. Like if they're like, I don't know if they prefer a grimdark. I don't know if they. So I worked in a Barnes & Noble and other bookstores long enough that if I was like, I want to read a fantasy, I've never read one before, I would hand them Mistborn without question, because it is, even though it's a book 1 of a trilogy, it stands alone. It's well written and will take you through the plot, and you will, if you don't enjoy that, fantasy is not for you. I'm sure I could probably find you a fantasy that you like if that one wasn't for you, but if you're like, I want to read one fantasy and then be done, that's what you're going to read. And I think it's got enough staying power. Like there are books I read as a kid that I probably would not recommend now, just because they're not as good as even just Brandon Sanderson. There are better books even than Brandon Sanderson. Yes, there are, and it's going to be, it's all ages. Even though it's, you can hand it to a 14-year-old, you can hand Mistborn to a 14-year-old, and they're going to be probably enthralled. And you can hand it to a 60-year-old who's never read a fantasy before, and if they make it through that, they're going to get it. And at least they can come to the table at that point. They can say, I've read a fantasy book and I can talk about it. And my grandchildren will know that I know about fantasy. So that's what it's about. That's why I would say that. I would not recommend Stormlight as a first book. I've met people who that's their first book they've read from Sanderson, or even their first fantasy. And I'm like, you read Stormlight?
That's not a beginner.
No, it is not. That's a hard book to get through. For me.
That is. So people listening, I did not send him these questions. That was an amazing answer. That was a well thought out in the moment. And you're you're good at that. I wish I was that good at in the moment questions. Okay. Your wife is very wonderful on the camera.
Yes.
How do I get my wife to break that shield down? Did you ever have to deal with that? Was that something, or was she like, she seems very outgoing?
Well, no, she's a raging introvert.
Okay. I would never have guessed.
Yeah, but that's why she dresses in a costume.
A raging introvert.
Raging introvert. So that's why she dresses in 1800s, because that's what she writes in, is in historical 1800s. So she dresses that way because then she has a costume and she's put the mask on of author. And so then she can do that. We also both have backgrounds in theater, so we've done a lot of stage work. That helps a lot. So if your wife has never done stage, it's a little bit harder, and that's okay. There's plenty of other things you can do, and there's plenty of authors who have never left their basement and they do very well. So if it's not for you, don't get on camera. I don't mind my own voice, and that's the other reason I do voices. When I read in voices, because then it's not me, and so it's easier for me to listen to my nasally voice when I'm editing it. So
I don't think it's nasally, but I think it's wonderful, whatever that means to you. But that's how I interpret it. But so I see my wife, she does TikTok live. Like she sells a lot of her graphics and stuff like that through TikTok. So I know she has it in her. Just getting her to do it at 8:30 at night when she's like, oh, I'm tired though. We'll get there. And when she does get there, I'm going to hit you up and be like, look, let's get the wives together. We're going to do an epic fantasy talk through, and we're going to convince my wife to read some more of it. All right, man. So what are you working on now? What's coming?
What is coming? So, book 4 of Collation will be coming out at the end of the summer, but not before I do a Kickstarter.
Oh, right.
Which is looking like July. So keep your eyes and
bank
keyboard
account.
fingers
I'll keep my
ready.
bank account open for you, my friend.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be brand new covers for all 4 books.
Okay.
So that they're all matching. It'll be hardback, naked covers underneath that.
Are you gonna have a tier where we can get every single one of them like in one shot? Oh my god!
Oh yeah, yeah. The best deal will be the all 4 hardbacks, and I'm working out on some doodads to put in the box that sweeten the deal, and it'll be a great price for getting those. So that's gonna happen. So that's the big news, is the Kickstarter is coming. I've been spending this whole week building it out, and as soon as I feel I'm ready, I'll start promoting it, and we'll get it going. So it will be this summer, whether it's July or August.
Okay,
remains to be seen, but I should have no problem delivering by end of September the books.
That's very exciting.
It's very exciting. I'm really excited about the covers. I'm writing the next cozy right now. And that one, I'm hoping that could also be out in September, depending on how fast I write it.
Will this be a part of a series with Quaint being the first book, or is it a separate cozy?
It'll be in the same world.
Okay.
All of them will be standalones, like Discworld. So you will not have to have read any other book in the Sideways.
Beautiful.
It's just going to be all standalone. So you pick your poison. Won't be poison in this next one, but this next one's going to be a food truck story. So a lot more legends and lattes about food trucks in the fantasy city.
Food's the coziest thing us humans do.
I put so much food in all my books. I'm going to have to do a cookbook here pretty soon.
Heck yeah.
I have an idea for a third cozy, but before I do that, I have to finish writing the third book for Needle and Leaf.
Okay.
It's a third done, and I need to finish it, and I can't write the fourth one until I write the third one. So that's what's on the docket. If I can get through all those books written and published, I will have met my goal of publishing 1 million words by the end of this year.
That's amazing. I'm glad that you added that. That's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm almost there.
If you guys don't know how much I did this in astronomy in high school, and that I failed that class, mind you, but I learned so much.
Yeah.
I can't take tests. I'm so bad at it. But I retained everything I learned.
Awesome.
If you don't understand how big 1 million is, measure a skittle and convert that. You can find the conversions on Google if you're not good at math. Convert that into feet, and then you convert that into miles. You'll realize how big 1 million is, because our brains can't. Right now, I say 1 million. You're like, oh, 6 zeros. But you certainly cannot understand it. I can't. Nobody can.
No.
1 million is a great, great goal.
Yeah.
Very happy for you, man. But I knew that this was going to be so much fun. Every time I talk to you, we get deep into so many different things. So what
are you reading right now?
What am I reading? Okay. There's let me think. So right now, I'm one of those guys. I'm a mood reader.
Yep.
I don't finish a lot of books, but I read quite a few at a time, and then I finish a bunch at a time.
Right.
Okay, so what I'm reading again is In the Shadow of Their Dying, which is very dark.
Yep.
Very, very dark, but it's good. It's got a atmospheric. It's not dark in the way of like trigger warnings. Mind you, there are a few.
Sure.
But it's dark in the sense that Anna Smith Spark is like the queen.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they call her the Queen of Grimdark, but she gives this feel, this atmospheric. She's a demon. And it's like this primal, like it's like a bear going after this like injured elk through the whole book. The smell.
Like the road. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just primal in nature. So that's a little bit of a side read. It's like a reread. My biggest thing, this book right here brought me into fantasy. I was sick in the hospital. I had no idea what to do because I was so like depressed. And I picked this book up, Ordinary Monsters.
Okay.
And I was so blessed to be sent the Ark from Flatiron Press of book 2. It's got Bringer of Dust. So I'm working myself through the reread of this because this is like 3 years in the past for me. My wife just read it, and this is like one of the only fantasy books she's ever read.
Cool.
It's got a Victorian gaslight or gas.
All right.
Was it gaslight?
Yeah.
Feel to it. It's really, really fun. It's like the adult Harry Potter, but like that's also it's like the way I would describe it, but also so far away from Harry Potter. But yeah. So a reread. I'm almost done with that, and then I'm going to start that arc.
Cool.
I'm reading a couple indie books at the moment. The Ragged Company by Rance D. Denton. Here it is. David, if you're still here, there's that big chunker. Violence and Vigilance.
Nice, that is big.
You hit an intruder with that bad boy. Mushroom Blues. I'm finishing that.
Cool. A good interview last night.
Oh, thank you so much, man. He's a fun dude.
And you mentioned on that you've read. Have you read all or some of Riccio?
Of what?
Christopher Riccio's books.
Oh, yeah. So, no, I haven't read all of them. I'm like halfway through book 2.
Me too. I'm about 33% through.
It's
so good.
What do you think? Yeah. So, okay. I'm glad you said there's some people of late that have picked that up and they're not so sure about it. But, man, I'm very sure that I love it. I do. I love it. It's epic, super epic, more epic than I ever thought that I could think. Just kind of being new to this and having a complete blast. And they redid the hardcover prints. I had to take one up.
I've been listening to the audiobooks. The reader is one of my favorite villains. He plays did you ever see Turn?
Yes.
On Netflix. It's Sergeant Simcoe, who's
no
the tall redheaded head. He's he's just the barbarian who ends up taking over the Queen's Rangers, and that's who read Riccio's books is Sergeant Simcoe.
I had no idea, but dude, his voice is epically British and amazing.
Yes, he does great voices.
So that's kind of where I'm at. There's probably a couple more, but those are the main ones that I want to finish before I move on.
Cool. What does your wife like to read?
She is let me think of the author real quick. Oh my gosh, I can't remember her name. She's very much into the psychological thriller.
Okay. But she likes Gaslamp, right?
Yes, she does. I guess like that. She absolutely loved Ordinary Monsters, so I would say yes.
Has she read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell?
No, she hasn't.
Okay. Really good. So Victorian magic has returned to England. Tori beat me to it. I was going to say the Wickwire Watch is another good example.
She tried Wickwire and she got like 75% through it.
Okay.
And like the floating city, she just didn't get it.
Cool. Okay. So, but if she likes Victoriana, it takes place in England, and it's a bit of a long read. It's a very long read, honestly. Mm-hmm. But if she likes a little bit of Austinian, a little dark, it's a good one.
Long is no problem, dude. get this, one of her first 2 reads ever, because she started reading the same time as me. I kind of convinced a little later than me, actually. Lonesome Dove and Streets of Laredo.
Okay.
That's like 2,000 pages right there. and by the way, Lonesome Dove gets all the love. She's like, dude, nobody should ever read this without Streets of Laredo. She's moving on. She's going to read all 4 books, but
nice.
Yeah, she impressed me with that.
Nice.
So yes, that. What are you reading right now?
Well, Rukio number 2.
Uh-huh.
I've got, what else have I got on my list? Well, I'm a couple of chapters into Janie Wertz number 2, and I need to just pick that back up. Right now, because I'm just in the middle of producing books, that tends to eat into all of my
I can't imagine
consumption time. But I've got a stack of books kind of just staring at me on the wall, and then I keep thinking about picking it up. I'm supposed to start Guns of the Dawn here soon. So
okay, yeah, Tori, when you were posting about that book, I was saying to myself, I've had Adrian on the channel, and it's like I learn of these pre-written books like that aren't new.
Yeah,
this dude is ambitious, man. This guy writes like no other. Never had heard of Guns of the Dawn, and I've been reading his books for a few years now. And it's like I've never heard of it, but very excited to learn more.
Yeah.
Well, man, I just wanted to really say thank you, and yes, that is a great one. Children of Time will blow your mind if you haven't read it, especially if you like insects, particularly spiders. I just want to say thank you, Andrew, man. It's always very light and casual, and also informative and serious at certain moments, man. It's why I do this. So I just want to say thank you. Beard of Light.
Beard of Darkness.
So, all right, man. I again, thank you for the guys and gals that were here live. Thank you so much as well. For those that catch it on replay, thank you. All the links to anything that Andrew D. Meredith does, has out, or will do is in his Linktree, which is in the description of this video. So go check that out. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And we'll see you next time, guys. Until then, rock on.